What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my refined review and builds guide for the long-awaited Choose Your Legends 4 units. So let us begin with Brave Dimitri, who in my opinion won in this batch in terms of the refined that he got. So now he is actually a top tier unit and a much better tank. He did have distant counter weapon and he can also get special cooldown charge on foes attack. But with this weapon refine, he's able to get true damage based on 20% of his defense, and he can also get flat damage reduction by 20% of his defense. Now, we have seen flat damage reduction before on Asker and Spring Maria, so this is the same thing, and this is the reason why Dimitri is going to be a really good tank. If you've used Asker for any amount of time, then you know that this kind of flat damage reduction is extremely good, because it cannot be pierced by Deadeye, Lethality, or any of those damage reduction piercing specials. It can also stack up with the regular damage reduction that he gets from Blue Lion Rule, and it is always going to be calculated before the flat damage reduction. So he's going to be reducing any kind of damage with Blue Lion Rule, and whatever damage is going to be remaining, he's going to be applying the flat damage reduction. And flat damage reduction is a bit different than the percentage based damage reduction, which is quite relative. So the flat damage reduction is just going to be based on his defense in combat, and this is extremely good with tanking with his base 40 defense and also the fact that he has got super boon in it. So this weapon refine can also give him +5 defense, speed and resistance, and he also inflicts -5 defense on foe in combat, so that can help him with the activation of Blue Line Rule, which does depend on Dimitri's defense, and he can also neutralize any kind of opponent's attack and defense buffs, which is really good because he's not going to be able to run something like level attack defense in his slot B. He has to run his preferred slot B skill, so overall this weapon refine makes him a hero from zero, and that is really insane because Dimitri was struggling quite a lot before, and now he can function as one of the best lance infantry units in the entire game. Now, I wouldn't really say that he's going to be better than someone like Asker, who also provides open domain and can also work in Gale Force teams, but Dimitri himself is going to be a really solid tank who can function as an Omni tank and can also function as a really solid melee tank if you decide to use him with a far safe tank. And even though he does have pretty low resistance, with this weapon refine and the flat damage reduction he gets, he's not going to be having much trouble tanking a lot of mages and even a lot of green mages. So that is a really good news for Dimitri fans, and this can definitely make him a meta unit in Summoner Duels as well as in Aether Raids offense. So in Aether Raids offense, he's of course going to be able to take on a lot of melee threats like Brave Seliph, and even in Summoner Duels, he's going to be able to work as a frontliner, and that is going to be extremely annoying for many of the melee nukes there. So Brave Dimitri is actually pretty insane with this weapon refine. Still, he does have some shortcomings, like he doesn't have -1 special cooldown, so he cannot really retaliate back with Bonfire, and he's forced to run 2 cooldown specials like Moonbow and Glimmer, which is fine, but retaliating back with something like Bonfire would have been so powerful. And he's also going to be susceptible to AoE specials from mages like Spring Sonia or Summer Thor, so you definitely have to watch out for that. And that's why in something like Summoner Duels, running him with a far safe tank can definitely help you quite a lot with some of those bad matchups. And Brave Dimitri, even at low merges, is going to be functioning to be a really good tank, and at high merges, he's going to be an absolutely fantastic unit. So if you want to build him up on a budget, then you can simply give him Attack Defense Form, Sacred Seal, and have Attack Smoke as he slots his skill. So Attack Smoke can help you a bit for tanking, and you can also just run Moonbow as a special if you just want to have better one-shots. And you can easily use him in like your auto battle teams because he's not going to be dying that easily, so you can just clear the chain challenges on auto battle. But if you want to invest into Dimitri seriously, then I would highly recommend a stand skill, because guard effects is definitely one of the best things for any kind of tank. And Dimitri is missing the guard effect out of his weapon refine, so giving him this with sturdy stance, bracing stance, or any kind of stance skill which can give him defense is going to be helpful. So bracing stance here is pretty amazing at max investment, and Attack Smoke 4 is also one of the best slotsy skills that you can run on him, because not only can debuff the opponent's attack and give him extra defense for the flat damage reduction, but it can also help him deny auto follow-up attacks from the slower enemies, because he can just get this insane damage reduction and then stop the auto follow-up attacks. And Moonbow is going to be pretty helpful for one-shotting. And as for his IVs, defense is definitely going to be the best IV that he can go for. Defense super boon is going to be really helpful because he can get true damage out of his defense, get the flat damage reduction, and of course defense check is part of blue line rule so that he can get the auto follow-up attack in the enemy phase and also get the defense based damage reduction. So again, highly would recommend any kind of stand skill here, and you can also run him with a finish skill because it does have similar conditions to his weapon refine, and this way he can just hit even harder by getting that +5 true damage, and he can also heal up HP, so it can be pretty good for self-sustain. And whenever attack defense finish comes out, that is going to be a bit more optimal so that he can get even higher defense for the flat damage reduction. But as of now, attack resistance finish 4 is definitely an option that he can run. If you want to ascend an IV, then attack could be a good option because he can just one-shot enemies a lot easily, and he can easily be run in something like Aether Raids offense. And if you don't want to run a stand skill on him, then giving him support from someone like Kaden, who does have the drive guard built into his weapon refine, that could be really helpful, and you can just run him with a far safe tank. And Dimitri is quite versatile in Aether Raids offense. Could be used in any kind of season, in Light, Astra, or even in Chaos, so that is really good. And on a budget, you can just run Distant Guard so that your far safe tank can essentially get some extra bulk, and the far safe tank can also protect your team from getting sniped by other range units of the opponent's team. I wouldn't really recommend going full Omni tanking with Dimitri, especially at low merges, so running him with a far safe tank can definitely help him. And you can also run him in Summoner Duels where he's going to be pretty amazing. So you could run him with a stand skill. Again, any kind of stand skill can work here. If you have some extra Surters lying, then Steady Stance 4 also works out. And Pulse Smoke is really good in Summoner Duels because people are going to be having those Hardy Fighter armors. They're going to be having those pre-charged specials. So it can really help you, especially with the guard effect that you can get out of Steady Stance. And a stand skill and the guard effect is going to be helping you not get blown up by these specials, which is one of the ways of Dimitri dying. So getting the guard effect is absolutely necessary and really amazing. And if you want to optimize even more for Summoner Duels, then you can just run him with Steady Posture and Counter Control. Now at max investment, investing into his speed is something that he can do, especially with Summoner support, because he does get the extra speed out of his weapon, and by running Steady Posture, not only you're going to be getting extra defense, but he can also get extra speed to deny follow-up attacks of the enemies. So he's not exactly using this to outspeed the enemies, but to rather deny the doubles of many of the units, which is going to be adding to his longevity and in a sense to his bulk. And bonus doubler can work out pretty nicely here because there's no other skill which can give you speed, defense, and attack at the same time. And counter control is absolutely amazing in Summoner Duels because people do run the Yuris, all of the Cavaliers with the Canto, Trace skills and everything. So Canto control on a frontliner like this is going to be pretty annoying for the opponents if you're not already running Canto control on some other unit like Duochrome. Finally, he could be used in Arena. Now he's not the highest scoring unit, but because of Blue Line rule being a 300 SP Slotty skill, if you run 300 SP Slotty and Slotty skill, then you can score like a 185 BST unit. And if you are a big fan of him, and if you do have him at this max investment, then yeah, he could easily be used in Arena and tank most of the threats there pretty easily. Again, guard effect is going to be helpful, and Steady Posture is something I would only recommend at max investment. I really wouldn't recommend going for the speed investment at low merges. It is pretty much something that you can do at max investment, as you saw with these two builds. You can easily run some high cooldown specials, but I would recommend just running Moonbow or Ruptured Sky as the two cooldown specials because him being able to one-shot a lot of threats can really help him in the case that he's getting doubled or if he's getting quad attacked. So having a special that you can retaliate back with is always going to be helpful with Dimitri's playstyle. Brave Edelgard was already the best unit out of CYL4 Legends 4 before the weapon refine, and she actually ends up getting a pretty solid weapon refine that doubles down on her strength. So Edelgard still has special cooldown -1, extra movement, and orders buff which can improve her mobility as an armor, and now with this weapon refine she can just casually inflict -12 attack and defense debuff on the foe in combat. And if that was not enough, she can get even more stats to her attack, defense, and resistance in combat, depending on the spaces moved by whoever initiated. So if they didn't move any kind of space, then she's at least going to be getting +3 attack, defense, and resistance. So this effect in a Refine kind of works like the Clash skill which we've seen on Brave Seliph, so it is in her best interest to have the enemy the farthest so that she can get more stats and also get the guard, but she only needs the enemy to move one or more space to get the guard effect, which is going to be really important, and can definitely free up her slotty skill from running any kind of stand skill. And at max you can get like +9 attack, defense and resistance, which is pretty amazing with the debuffs that she can do. And finally she's also able to get 7 HP healing per hit in the combat, so that is also really good for freeing up her special so that she doesn't have to run something like Noontime and can just get the healing out of this weapon Refine. So Brave Edelgard doesn't really reinvent the wheel, she just doubles down on her strength. She's still going to be annoyed by her counters like Duochrome and any kind of high attack, armor effective, tank buster, so you have to watch out for those matchups, and also someone like legendary Nana. But still overall her weapon Refine makes her into a much better tank, and she can function really well in the mix phase as well if you want to. And ultimately you can also run her as a near safe tank, because for most of the armor units, safe tanking is pretty much how they can end up. Now even though she can have a player phase, it is not going to be as good as something like Summer Edelgard because she does not have Blazing Storm. So most of the high investment Edelgards are going to be running the safe skills anyways, and she's actually a top tier near safe tank with this weapon Refine. So if you want to build her up on a budget, then you can simply give her Bonfire and Steady Breath because she can already get the healing out of this weapon Refine. So you can just run Bonfires which can do so much damage and one-shot the enemies with the Breath Sacred Seal. And if you want to invest a bit more into her, then attack, defense, near save is going to be the best slotsy skill essentially for most of the builds here. And because she already gets the guard effect out of her weapon Refine, you don't really need to run Sturdy Stance 3 on her, which unfortunately she does get from the Do, and a lot of people did run it before, so now you can just change it up for attack, defense, unity, which can protect her from the debuffs of her attack and defense, which are pretty high stats. And if you want to run something on a budget, then I guess you could run Sylvalan Shield, which could help you in the Brave Erica matchup at the very least. And Close Defense 4 is another good slotty option that she can run, which allows you to neutralize any kind of buffs of the opponent. And she could run Attack Defense Ideal because she does get the healing, so she can maintain that full HP condition. But overall, Attack Defense Unity and Close Defense 4 are the better options because of their additional effects, like being able to deal with the debuffs or just neutralizing the buffs of the opponent. Both of these builds could be run at low investment as well, but more merges are always going to be helping a tank like her. And in game modes where debuffs are going to be common, like Aether Raids offense, attack defense unity is going to be a bit better. And in game mode like Arena or Aether Raids defense, Close Defense 4 is going to be helping you a bit more. And she can just hit extremely hard with Steady Breath and Bonfire, and actually be so tanky with the extra stats and the guard effect. She does have a defense super boon, so you can definitely benefit from that with a near save build, and you can also run far save on her at high investment and max investment. Now honestly, there are a lot better far save tanks than her, like Brave Hector, Ascended Idun, and Lion King Mufasa, who just run far save better and can function better as a far save tank. Edelgard is not exactly the best far save tank even after her weapon refine, so I would only recommend running far save and distant counter on her at max investment, and she can just run Warding Breath and Iceberg and retaliate back with those specials. So it could work out, but you definitely have to watch out for some threats like Duochrome. And speaking of Duochrome, Summoner Duels is the game mode where he's really notoriously common. So in Summoner Duels, you could actually run a build like this to survive him, and she could be using Summoner Duels S as a far save tank, especially when you can just ban Duochrome outright. And even if you don't ban him, you can at least survive him with this build. So her weapon refine definitely makes it possible for her to survive Duochrome and as pre-charged Deadeye by having Sacred Cowl as her special. And you can just use Asker or your own Duochrome to pre-charge this, and Defense Rest Form is going to be helping you just get that extra bulk. So here you can see an optimized +1 Valentine Chrom who can still bring her to a single digit HP, but at least she's able to survive, and that's a huge thing in Summoner Duels. The metagame in Summoner Duels is a lot more different, and survival of safe tanks is so important. And you can also just optimize this build even more by running Hardy Fighter. Like I said, survival is the king in Summoner Duels for the safe tanks, so that's why Black Eagle rule is not really that helpful. And you can just run Hardy Fighter so that you can have Aegis pre-charged, and Hardy Fighter can also give you extra damage reduction with the defensive special, so that can actually help her tank even a plus 10 merge to a Chrom like this. Of course, other safe tanks can comfortably tank him a lot better, but still the fact that she's able to do this is definitely pretty amazing. And Distant Defense 4 is also really good because it can just help you in the duo dogger matchup, just ignoring the visible buffs of the opponent. And Deflect Missile is also really helpful for that. Or if you face Brattle Catcher teams and you face archers that can just quad attack. So it does help you with that damage reduction. And a lot of these archers can already charge up their special, even if they're quad attacking, because of the guard effect that she can have. Finally, she could be run in Arena because she is the highest scoring Choose Your Legends 4 unit in this batch. And even though she doesn't score the highest as of this moment, you can still use her pretty easily in Arena as a near safe tank. And Close Defense 4 is going to be a lot better here for ignoring all of the rally units and the visible buffs of the opponent. And you can run Ruptured Sky as her special, but we're already debuffing the opponent's attack by quite a lot, so its damage output does get reduced, and she can easily run Aether with a Breath-Sacred Seal and pretty easily get the healing and the damage out of it. Brave Claude gets a pretty good weapon refine that tries to fix some of the issues which he had before. So he of course has minus on special cooldown, and whenever his special triggers, he can heal up half of his max HP. Now previously this is all he had, and because of this, it was really annoying for him to face any kind of Fatal Smoke user. But this weapon refine actually tries to fix that by reducing the effect of Deep Wound status and Fatal Smoke by 60%. So even under the Deep Wound status effect, he's still going to be able to heal up 30% of his max HP, which is at least something. So he's not going to be left there without any kind of healing, which is definitely an upgrade. And honestly, I didn't think they would do something about the Deep Wounds effect, because that's pretty much what just killed Brave Claude after he was used in Aether Raids offense after his release. So this is a pretty great effect. And then he can also get plus 10 to all of his stats in combat, and he can also get the Null Guard effect, which allows him to spam his special a lot easily to heal up his HP. And he can also get Partial Null Follow Up, which allows him to bypass any kind of follow-up negation unit and still double attack. And finally, if he has got any kind of bonus active on him, then he can get 30% of the damage reduction on foe's first attack. So this pretty much gives Claude a lot of the things which he needed. So he gets the Null Guard to spam specials, and he also has a way of dealing with the Deep Wounds effect, which is going to be making him a much better self-sustained tank with the healing that he can get out of this weapon. So Claude can just stack up his HP with Summoner support, Mythics, and all of that to just heal up a lot of HP and be a pretty great self-sustained tank. And Brave Claude does play out a bit differently than a lot of the archers. A lot of the archers focus on nuking and just shredding through the tanks, but Brave Claude tries to self-sustain with this kind of weapon and tries to act more like a tank. So he's not going to be able to nuke units as hard as some of the archers with his base 36 attack, because he doesn't really get any kind of true damage like Dimitri, for example. So at the lower merges, his damage output is not going to be the highest, but at max investment, Claude really shines with the healing and being able to tank with this damage reduction. You also need to watch out for pre-charge lethality and Deadeye, which can just pierce through his damage reduction, and the nukes have definitely gotten quite ridiculous ever since his release. So units can just one-shot him, or they have some kind of brave weapon, which could be a bit annoying for Claude before he even gets to counter-attack. So you have to watch out for those kinds of opponents, but he's definitely going to be a pretty fun unit to use after his weapon refine. So he's mainly going to be seeing usage competitively in Aether Raids offense. I don't think he's going to be used too much in Summoner Duels or in Arena. So if you want to build him up on a budget, then you can simply give him Windsweep, which is an option now after the Partial Null follow-up that he has got. And there are not too many options for ranged flyers, especially on a budget, so we take whatever we can get. With the kind of playstyle Brave Claude has got, he really appreciates any kind of extra stats out of the merges, Dragon Flowers, and especially Summoner support, which can help him heal up even more HP out of his weapon. So at higher investments, you can definitely run him with a premium skill like Attack Speed Catch 4, and then in this lobby you can just run a Fortress skill because range flyers don't really have too many options, and at least this can give you the Canto and also the in-combat debuffs. And Speed Spoke 4 is actually pretty good with Claude, and it can't stack up with the damage reduction of Wind Parthia. And keep in mind that Wind Parthia only gives him damage reduction against the first hit of the opponent. So against the second hit, if he gets auto doubled, then Speed Smoke 4's damage reduction is going to be helpful. and you don't really want him to get one-shot by the archers, so that's why you do want to run IO Shield Sacred Seal, and he can just run a 2 cooldown special so that he can instantly retaliate back and heal up the HP. And you can also run him with attack Smoke 4. He actually makes good use out of the both Smoke 4 skills, so it really depends on which path you want to go. So with a close reversal build, you can definitely run that at high investment and max investment, and attack Smoke 4 can essentially give you the full null follow-up because he has got the half null follow-up in Wind Parthia, and then he can get the follow-up negation with attack Smoke 4. So essentially he is able to get full bootleg null follow-up with attack Smoke 4 and its follow-up negation. And it's really good because Claude is pretty fast, so with the follow-up negation he's going to be able to stop the auto doubles of many of the slower opponents, which is not possible with Speed Smoke 4. And with this kind of weapon refine, he can easily run close reversal and take on even the melee opponents. You can also run him with a crazy expensive build with attack speed Unity and attack speed Oath 4. So this does have good synergy because he can just teleport, and then he can also meet the condition of the Unity skill, and it can also protect him from the attack and speed debuffs, or in case he gets panicked. Overall, attack speed Unity is going to be a pretty good skill for Brave Claude, and unlike attack speed Catch 4, it really does not depend on the enemy's HP and can also protect you from the debuffs, which is definitely really helpful. You can also run him in Aether Raids offense, especially in the Astra season where he can get the damage reduction from Elemine, can use the false start, and he can also get the visible buffs out of Ashera. So this can allow him to Omni tank pretty easily, and with the mythic buffs he can reach high amount of HP. In Aether Raids offense, Guard can be really helpful so that he can prevent the special charges of the enemies, and this is definitely one of the ways of using Claude competitively. And now that Deep Wounds effect does not completely stop his healing, it's definitely a pretty nice option in Aether Raids offense, and this could also work for the Chaos season or for the Light season if you want to run him with a near safe tank. But if you want to Omni tank, then Astra season is definitely better because you can just stop like the pre-charged specials of the enemies with the false start and just stop the rattle catcher teams. That is really good, and it's definitely pretty easy to just use the tanking and just overall offense in the Astra season. Finally, he can also be used in Arena with CYL Flying 4, and he's definitely one of the better users of it, despite not really scoring as much as the other units, but if he's one of your favorites, then you can definitely use him, and the extra HP from the dual skill definitely helps with the healing. Now, in Arena, you definitely want to run the IO Shield Sacred Seal so that you can take on some of the archers, and because IO Shield is a low scoring Sacred Seal, you want to compensate that by running a 300 SP slotsy skill like Speed Defense Hold, or even a Menace skill. It really depends on you, whatever slotsy option that you've got available. So he could be run in Arena with this kind of build, and the flyer mobility is definitely pretty nice in a game mode like Arena. Brave Lysithea gets an amazing weapon refine so that she can nuke harder, and she can also function as a pretty unique unit for setting up Aether Raids offense Wings of Mercy strategies. So Dark Spike's Tau does provide +3 speed and the cavalry effectiveness. At start of the turn, she can inflict herself with 1 damage, and this 1 damage is going to be activating the guaranteed follow-up attack and the desperation effect. So she can function much better offensively, and she can also provide herself with the Otter's buff at start of the turn. So she can just teleport pretty easily with this, and it does increase her mobility. With this weapon refine, she's able to get -1 special cooldown and +12 attack and speed in combat. And finally, she can also get special charges on her own hits. So this can allow her to nuke really hard, and this allows her to run something like Luna and just trigger that in the desperation range. Brave Lysithea is going to be functioning as a much better nuke with this weapon refine, and a good thing about her is that she does have guaranteed follow-up attack despite being a fast unit. So this means that she can just double attack the slower opponents who have follow-up negation skills, and she doesn't really need to run null follow-up in her slot B, and it can just be used to run some other slot B skill. And she can also be a lot more self-sufficient because of the 1 damage that she can do to herself, and this can also open up strategies in Aether Raids offense by using Wings of Mercy and Gale Force allies. But unfortunately, she's going to be getting walled by Hardy Fighter and Deflect Magic Far Save Armor units. Brave Hector and Ascended Udon are some of the more common far save tanks, and she can also get stopped by the damage reduction. So if we ever get a damage reduction piercing special for mages, then Lysithea is definitely going to be getting much better. Now, if you want to run her on a budget, then you can just run her with Luna, because after this weapon refine, Luna becomes a 2 cooldown special, And with these special charges and the desperation in her weapon, she's able to trigger that on her second hit and just nuke a lot harder. She can also run a double life and death AoE build for clearing up the in-game content with like 3 dancers, and this could be pretty helpful for beating up the abyssal maps and chain challenges. Unfortunately, one of the primary effects in her weapon is going to be getting thrown out of the window when the opponent is going to be below 75% HP. So unfortunately, she's going to be missing out on like 6 attack and speed with this kind of build, but still she can function pretty well as a PvE unit with special spiral and an AoE special. And even against guard opponents, she's going to be able to loop her special because of the special acceleration that she can get out of her weapon refine. And if you want to invest a bit more into her and run something different in her slot A, then you can definitely go with Sparrow 3. So a lot of people do dislike the recall damage of the push skill, especially after the refine where she can already trigger the effect by doing 1 damage to herself. So in that case, you can just run Sparrow 3, and because she can teleport and have the orders buff, a Joint Drive skill does have pretty good synergy with that kind of teleportation. So you can just run Joint Drive attack, and you can also run attack speed unity in her slot A and also get time pulse at the same time from Brave Marianne. So as of making this video, there's no speed resistance tempo, and that is definitely a skill that you would like because she's missing out on the tempo effect, and tempo skills are definitely pretty powerful with these special charges that you can get out of these kinds of weapons. So you can just run attack resistance tempo and run Dragon Fang, so it becomes 3 cooldown special with her weapon, and then time pulse brings it down to 2 cooldown, and because of the tempo effect and the special charges, she can nuke with Dragon Fang on her double attack, and that is going to be nuking extremely hard with her high attack stat. Now, as I've been saying, you can definitely use her Aether Raids offense for enabling aggressive strategies with Wings of Mercy and Gale Force allies, and that is, I think, one of the more unique ways of using Lysithea, because while Winter Bernadetta can do the same thing with the friendly fire 1 damage, Lysithea is going to be a lot more available. So if you missed out on Winter Bernadetta, then Lysithea is basically the next best option. Now, Winter Bernadetta also damages her allies within 2 spaces for 1 damage, so that means that you can just set up with Ardent Sacrifice a lot faster by using a dancer, but Lysithea only does 1 damage to herself, so it might take you a few turns to set up with Ardent Sacrifice, like 2-3 turns if you're going to be using someone like Thor as your initiator. And you can also run Ardent Sacrifice on a mythic like Regan and run Reciprocal Aid on your main Gale Force initiator. So the idea is that you can Ardent Sacrifice with your mythic unit, and because they're going to be having lower HP because of not getting any kind of HP boost, they're going to be enabling the usage of Reciprocal Aid by another ally so that they can just fall into that Wings of Mercy range. And you can also run allies with Double Fury so that they can fall in the Wings of Mercy range after 1 combat. So it's going to be a bit harder to use Lysithea compared to Winter Bernadetta in terms of that 1 damage. And even if Brave Lysithea is not at full HP, she's still going to be doing 1 damage to her at sort of every turn, while Winter Bernadetta only does that if she's at full HP. So that is the main difference between these 2 units for using them for setting up these strategies. I would highly recommend you to check out my Aether Raids offense videos if you want to see how you work out these strategies. I do use Winter Bernadetta, but you can pretty much use Lysithea for the same. And Lysithea can just run double life and death so that she can soak up the Bright Shrines and the chill attack debuffs for your main Gale Force allies, and I would definitely recommend having minus HP IV, especially in the Chaos season where it is going to be a lot easier for you to just Reciprocal Aid and then fall into the Wings of Mercy and Gale Force range with your main initiator. So lower HP is always good on Lysithea, and she does have a super pain in HP as well. Lysithea can also work as a pretty good Vantage unit herself in the Aether Raids Chaos season, so it's a lot easier to Vantage in the Chaos season because the enemies are not going to be having the mythic buffs, and Lysithea doesn't really need the support of Winter Bernadetta because she does the 1 damage to herself, so after she Ardent Sacrifices for 2 turns, she's able to enter into the Vantage range and also the Brazen Attack Speed range, and with the support of Muspel, she's able to do a lot of damage in the Vantage range. And the fact that she's got cavalry effectiveness is one of the reasons why she can function so well in the Chaos season with Vantage, because a lot of people just run Duo Dogger and Note with a bunch of Cavaliers. So in that case, Lysithea can just Vantage those Cavaliers really easily, and also Vantage a lot of the melee opponents as well because of having close salvo or close reversal. Finally, she could also be used in Arena with our Duel Infantry 4, and she can just trigger Ruptured Sky on her second hit, and you can just run a Menace skill so that she can get the attack and resistance buff, and also get the resistance debuff on the enemy to hit them a lot harder. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the Brave refines of these units, and make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to build up any of these units with updated builds. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member down below. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as lethality against flat damage reduction. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.